Welcome back, Laurie. It's a fantastic opportunity to have you back again, and I give you a warm clapping hands and a heart from my end, having you back again. Now,
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking to you both.
There is one spectacular show we will never ever forget when we took up the Blues Brothers bridge when we all wore sunglasses.
That's right.
Yeah, and having said that, you bring more than 25 years of experience into our conversation. You're coming from the IT industry, and you have been now in the role of co-founder and partner of the SMB Group, and have done several researches. We have had the fun that we have had you regularly on topics like SMB trends, buying behavior, and also the impacts on artificial intelligence, especially on that dedicated market. When our friend still was educating me that the Tante Emma saying is the mom and pop shop, and that the mom and pop store are very similar to Aunt Emma and the smaller subsidiaries or smaller businesses, we came into the discussion what is changing the complete game, what is changing after COVID, what has been happening through the pandemic. And now we are looking into to be very comparable situations, such as situation in the market is critical, if it's a pandemic or not. Business is not as easy as it was in earlier times. And we do have an impact on some new technologies. Now, we would love to learn in the upcoming hour a lot from your up-to-date report, which has only been made accessible to some smaller groups, which are properly doing the retainer business with you. And I am happy that you share with us and the audience some of your findings. So thank you very much for that one.
Well, thanks again for having me.
What inspired your latest research, Laurie? Is it okay? Round about the same size of participants you had in
Yeah, I apologize. Things are breaking up a little for me here. I don't know.
Let's blame it on the internet.
Easy does it. I was just asking for what was your motivation and the inspiration that you jumped into the AI topic, especially in 2025.
Yeah.
Where did you see?
Well, as you know, Yeah, I got to apologize right now for the technical difficulties, but I think you were asking me, why were we doing this impact of AI on SMBs? And as you mentioned, we had done a survey of SMBs on AI in 2023. So we really wanted to see, now that generative AI has come so far, and people are more familiar with AI in general, kind of how things may be evolving and changing. So that was really, the impetus. Plus, AI seems to be the thing that vendors are all hitching their wagons to. So, everybody is interested in learning more about how, what the trends are.
Cool. Now, what are the trends?
Yeah, well,
Do they work?
we did. Yeah, so we do definitely see that, back in 2023, about half of respondents said they were using AI in some form. But a lot of that was experimental. About a quarter of it was experimental. and about 25 or 28% were using it for business, and the rest, a lot were considering it, using it, and none. And then there was a group that was not going to use it at all. Now, since then, 53% now say they're using AI. So that's up. And another 29% say they plan to start using it in the last year. So I think that, that alone shows that, it's definitely on that growth trajectory.
Now, those numbers, given all the hype, seem fairly low, actually. Could it be that some of them are not even aware that they are already using a heck of a lot of AI tools?
Oh yeah, no, I think some companies definitely aren't aware that they're even using them, because there's more AI capabilities built into applications, right? And I think probably the smaller the business, the less time they're taking to figure out, well, how is this stuff getting automated for me? How is this doing this? And so I think you're right. It's definitely creeping in all kinds of ways. Some where it's more upfront and in your face, that AI is what's kind of driving the functionality. And in other times, maybe it's harder to discern that.
It is a bit like the fairy tale about the hedgehog and the hare, such as the one is running and running, and as the hedgehogs are two, they make him believe that he is running against a very fast hedgehog. But as you said, it is in a certain number of applications built in, such as it comes in within the stomach, to say so. And that is an interesting part. So has this shown an impact that built-in AI capabilities are significantly more used, or what is the take if they are going to buy solutions in new? What are they going for in your research? What are they actually buying these days?
Yeah, well, you know what? We found out that most SMBs that are using AI, so about 80% say they're using or planning to use. But among those using them, most are using both free and paid tools, number one. Although free tools are higher up, they have a higher percentage than paid tools by maybe 10 or 12 percentage points. And in terms of standalone apps and integrated apps where that, integrate AI right into them, like so many do today, that is also very even. And I think that, the standalone apps public that are free out there, the chat GPTs and the like, Gemini, those are easy for everybody to get their hands on, play with, start using, and maybe in a more even individualistic manner. So, I've got to compose email, so I can do that now in Google. I can have that assistant compose the email or whatever. But then they're also using, obviously, the tools that are integrated within their business apps, whether that's, something from Intuit or something from Workday or Zoho or Salesforce or anything in between. So, I think everybody's kind of dipping their toes in and seeing what works, and we're still early, so they're trying different things.
Yeah. And by experimenting or trying and finding the benefits, has there been a development in the last 2 years? What are the first observations on that end, such as that they found some areas where they earn the benefits and where they have fun to utilize it?
Well, definitely, first impact of AI on the business. So, and the percentage of people using AI that say it's transform their business or significantly improve their business has gone up. So they're definitely seeing the value of it in different ways. And I think that, the biggest thing is that most SMBs are pretty pragmatic. So what they're doing is they're looking at their operational challenges in the business. So whether that's improving employee productivity or doing a better job supporting their customers or streamlining their, close a bit, fiscal close every month, whatever it is. They're saying, okay, AI is helping me address these operational challenges better. And the top ones that they say it's really helping with in terms of helping with operational challenges is improving employee productivity and collaboration. 85% in the study said that is either very helpful or extremely helpful. Mm-hmm. And then collaboration with customers and suppliers and partners, 79%. Customer satisfaction and retention is also really strong. All of these things they're seeing these benefits because they're using AI in different areas of how they organize their workflow and get things done.
And you have, sorry.
Are they using it across the board or preferring, business scenarios or parts of the value chain?
Well, we in the survey, and it's too much to get into here, but we looked at, I think, 6 different functional areas, and we asked them in each functional area, what kinds of AI features are you using, right? So I have it here in my notes that I plucked out for you because I think, Ralph, you'd asked. And for instance, I think you were asking me about what are they doing with productivity and collaboration. And right now, a lot of the top use cases center around text and communication kind of efficiency. So, things like creating email content, which I mentioned, summarizing emails, highlighting action items, generating smart replies. So right now it's in that area, for instance, that's really focused on saving time, doing things faster, reducing the manual effort, right? But looking ahead, when we ask them about plans, some of the strongest plans, they show a shift towards more, I guess, proactive and engagement-oriented tools. So some of the top things they're planning to use is, it suggests based on what we covered in this meeting. Like if we have a weekly staff meeting, or we go through this, and this, you've summarized it. What should we put on the topics for the next agenda? Automating meeting scheduling, and even using sentiment analysis to gauge employee morale and engagement during the meeting. So, you can see things shifting not only to streamlining, those really rote tasks, but also getting into more of some of the
Are there
so in every,
sorry.
I was just going to say, so in every one of those areas, I think the common thread is truly, whatever business functional area, a lot of the current use today is on focusing on getting the drudgery out, kind of using AI to turbocharge automation. But as they look ahead, they want to use it for more proactive and analytical and things.
Is there already any indication about the rage topic right now, on which is agentic?
Well, we did find that familiarity, their self-reported familiarity with AI overall is high. I can't remember. I did jot it down, but it's somewhere in my notes. And it's very high. Most people think they're at least somewhat familiar with regular old, the slop heap we call AI, all the things we there to date. But when it comes to agentic AI, familiarity is much lower, right? So I think, I'm trying to find exactly so I can tell you, Thomas. Let's see, where's the agentic AI? I think that was towards the back of what you asked me. But it was a lot lower, and so basically there's still, my take on all this is we all probably think we're a little, so a lot of them, they already say, yeah, I'm pretty familiar with AI, I hear about it all the time, I read about it all the time, I'm using it, I'm experimenting with it, I'm doing this, that, and that other thing. But the agentic AI familiarity even is still low, despite the fact that people think, that they usually know more than they actually do. So I would say that, in that area, the vendors still have a lot of education. And I'm going to have to apologize because now my dog is banging on the door to come in here. So let me let her in.
That is fair.
Come on, Layla. Go ahead. Go. Yeah. She's pretty high maintenance.
Yeah, well,
Sorry
as you
about
know,
that. So, I think,
as you know,
there's honestly still a lot. Yeah. So just getting back to that, a lot of, those of us that are going around to all these events and talking to vendors and analysts, we are parsing all this AI out in terms of the different kinds of AI, machine learning and generative AI and now agentic AI. And I don't think most business decision makers, especially at the low end of SMB, because smaller SMBs are much less likely to be using AI, familiar with AI, familiar with agentic AI. So they're coming up the curve, and a lot of this is kind of like, I guess, are you a Methodist or a Presbyterian Protestant, and what is the difference? Okay, they have different names, and I know they're both under this umbrella, but I don't necessarily understand, what would differentiate a Methodist from a Presbyterian.
Yeah. Interesting enough, you observed that the size of the organization divided in the SMBs does have a higher or a lower adoption on the AI topic in general. Could you dive in a bit more in that? You found out that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we see this, with every new technology in the world, almost since I've been an analyst anyway, the larger the organization, the more resources they have.
Now you know that Thomas is around
both
there.
Business resources and technology resources and expertise and access to third parties, all of those things. And as the company size goes down, those things are pretty sparse, right? So, and also the smaller companies, people are wearing a lot of hats. They're doing more in terms of working in the business every day rather than on the business in terms of business planning and technology planning. So there's usually a lag between when smaller organizations start using new technology compared to larger ones, right? And, the other thing is smaller organizations often tend to be more skeptical of new technology. Even it was certainly true with the cloud. And now it's definitely true with AI. A lot of them don't even think they have, business cases or use cases that AI could help them with. And I think those of us who, even know just a little bit about what AI can do and have played around with it can see, oh, there are probably a lot of business use cases for almost any company with AI. So I think there's a lot of factors that go in, but it's basically, lack of time, money, and resources at the low end make it harder for them.
Yeah, that is understood, and absolutely logical. I was very curious on the aspect if something in the research took you, to say so, by surprise. Were there some of these little hidden gems where you say, that one, I was quite surprised about?
Yeah, well, one thing that really struck me is that, and this particular finding didn't strike me as odd, but the concerns they have about AI, what are your big concerns? So I think it's the top two. Well, the top one was privacy and security, no surprise. The second one was bad or misleading information. Also not a surprise, but that's risen. That's gone up since 2023. And, now that is the number 2 issue that SMBs are concerned about. And what I think is that even though this concern has gone up, 23% of respondents have a high level of trust in AI, and over half have a moderate level trust in AI. And the other kind of surprising thing is that only about a quarter of SMBs using AI have a process in place to review AI content and output. So, there's a lot of concern about the rating may not be accurate, may be misleading, maybe out of context, all those things. But then, I have a lot of trust overall in AI, and I don't have any process in place to review this content or the outputs. That's a little concerning and scary to me.
Yeah. So that is more or less such as, we let it happen, we trust it, and if it's hallucinating, well, then we have a slight little problem. But as long as our customers do not realize it, we're fine. Okay. Interesting.
Well, I don't know if they think they're fine. I mean, the good news is that about half of them are saying they're planning to put a process in place to review the AI generated content. Now, and just because you don't have a process in place doesn't necessarily mean you're not. Hopefully the people using AI in their individual jobs are taking a look at it and, giving it the once over to make sure it's not misinterpreting things, right? But I think as time goes on, it's especially with standalone tools, it's going to become more and more important. Obviously any kind of sensitive information or legal information, we've seen lawsuits, it's, against AI creating, phony cases and all kinds of information that's, very dangerous. But even in your marketing materials or something like that, do you really want to have it go without a check before it goes out to prospects? I don't think so. So I think you're going to find people, prioritizing that going forward.
How many of those who do not have a process in place to check AI generated content have a process to check human generated content?
Well, that's true. We didn't ask that. So I don't know, but this is my take with AI.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad enough that we were proliferating and spewing out so much content even before generative AI. Now I read that there's more content generated per person on the planet than consumed. So we get a lot of really bad, even if it's not inaccurate, it's probably just a lot of regurgitated content out there. And so I think that there's so much that, as you can crank out more, you're just cranking it out. Maybe the mindset is, it's like so much of it. It's like turning on the tap water. I don't really need to worry about it. It's until, we don't live in the desert. We got the water coming out. Just let it flow. But I think that will probably, hopefully at some point change, because, there are consequences to that, negative ones.
Well, these consequences I haven't seen yet for email marketing. That's pretty much the same. It's a numbers game. Nobody opens it, so I send a few more. Or a few.
Yeah, that's true.
So why should people act different with a different set of tools?
Yeah, no, you're right. Then with stuff like that, it's probably just more emails. It's probably not but anything where there's any kind of sensitivity. Hopefully people will put more of a check and balance approach on it.
How happy you say that they are? Well, the report says two things that struck me basically. There's a good number who raises cost concerns, which, well, is a concern. And at the same time, a lot of the respondents say they see the potential for significant value. I mean, if I see the value but don't do it for cost concerns, then there's a sort of a disconnect. So is this because the tools are too expensive, that the value generated ends up in the pockets of the vendor? Or what do you see as possible reasons for that?
For them not having the processes?
No. This is they cite cost concerns as one of the reasons for not using it, and
for not using AI.
Yeah, and at the same time, they see a lot of potential value. So
no, cost concerns are not a big reason not to use it. I think that the concerns are more around privacy and security, misleading information, not having or knowing what my use cases would be, thinking my business is too small to benefit. There are all kinds of reasons. At this point, we don't see cost concerns as a big reason.
Did I read something wrong there?
Probably the cost concerns in getting into a fenced garden.
Top reasons for not using AI: cost concerns, 27%.
No, not now. Yeah, I mean, and I think probably part of that is because they think, hey, if I want to use it, there's a lot of free tools. If you're not using AI at all, you're not even using free ChatGPT, or you're not even using the free AI you get in your application you already use. There are definitely ways to use AI without spending a dime more than you're already spending.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's the main holdup. I think it's more about, I don't know what my use cases are. I don't know, if I can trust AI, the privacy and security area. I don't think my organization has enough expertise or training to use it properly. Those are the holdbacks right now. Now, in a larger organization where they're using AI and you're more familiar with it, and you're going to use more advanced things that are going to cost them more money, that may slow things down for them in terms of adoption. But if you're talking about people not using it at all, they probably don't know enough about how expensive it could get at this point.
Yeah, just do some API calls and then you'll learn fast. You'll learn it fast.
Yeah.
Another one that's
but for the and a lot of the companies not using it now they're that very small, like community, and they haven't even looked into how much something will cost, because they've just said, this is not for me right now.
Another interesting factoid is that they seem to lack business cases or use cases, even in bigger companies.
They don't know enough to know. Yeah.
Wow, how to change that? I mean, that's clearly clearly a vendor and consultant.
They don't know enough about it yet to really understand how I would apply it.
Yeah. I had the impression.
I don't know what's going on. We have some weather here. Go ahead.
The thing is, I wondered that the vendors which are analyzing the behavior of their customers, if paying or not paying. So if an OpenAI as an organization is looking into the utilization of the tools, that they do not have the proper marketing and the proper convincing arguments to get somebody on the hook or on the needle to go for the paid product in differentiation to the free product. Yeah. And that is an interesting aspect, such as if I would be a vendor, I try to communicate the even more benefits for the paid version. And that I was observing by analyzing what you sent it to us, that I thought that there is a gap in communication of the benefits. Having said that, I was also asking you about something which was to a certain degree concerning you. So the job situation. What we have here as one observation in Germany is that very critical people which have their problems had with the cloud technology, we call it German Angst, that they are even skeptical in where they find their job enrichment, or where they would find the progress utilizing AI, and that it's not only a job killer. Yeah, Thomas quotes very often efficiency, and that this is more or less a piece in that direction. What did you find there?
Yeah, I hope the connection is not working well for me today, but I think if you're asking like the job killer thing, well, we saw that about 16% of the SMBs that are currently using AI, because we only ask them if AI has replaced jobs if they're using AI, so about 16% said that yes, they have replaced some human beings today with AI. But looking out ahead in the next 2 years, about 25% think that AI will replace some jobs in their companies. And so I think, it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you want to be more you want to be more efficient, you want to be more productive, all those kinds of things, and AI can enable that. On the flip side, seeing people get laid off and displaced out of their jobs, nobody wants, well, a lot of people, myself included, we don't want to see that, which I think, points to a big issue well beyond my pay grade of how we, not only educate businesses, but educate in universities and schools and how do we train up the next generations of workers so that their skills are, I don't want to say necessarily a step ahead of AI, but their skills are to use AI better and get better results from it, rather than, AI is going to replace a lot of rote jobs and a lot of drudgery jobs very quick. There's no question about it. It's already doing it. So, for instance, if you're an accountant, right, a lot of your job is a lot of it was even getting replaced with automated software tools before AI. And so how do we get that next level of skill, that next level of value add into, the human workers, so that they can be more creative, they can do more thinking outside the box, they can be more helpful to whether it's internal clients or external clients or whatever, to advance the business. But I do feel like, it is and it will continue to replace jobs.
How many or did you look into how many of your respondents are rather looking into growth than efficiency?
I missed that question because of the internet.
Yeah, the internet is not net today.
Yeah.
How many of your clients?
Yeah, if you write it in the chat, I can.
Yeah, I do. Did your clients? Did you look into whether your clients, your respondents? I can speak faster than type, by the way. Respondents looked at growth rather than efficiency. So should be in the chat.
No, we didn't ask that. That's a great question. We didn't ask them specifically, is it more of a growth enabler or an efficiency enabler? I think that would have been an interesting question to ask for sure. But I think in a lot of people's minds, to at least some degree, in other words, if I can't be efficient in these processes, if it's taking, very labor intensive, time intensive efforts to get something done, I can't scale the processes. How can I grow the business? So I think right now, especially for us, a lot of them are is, okay, if I can get efficient, I can spend more, if I get efficient and AI is helping me do a lot of those tasks that require a lot of labor and time, help me do that quicker, then I can spend in my business, right? And of course, it's like a Venn diagram. There's overlap there. If you're using AI in marketing or customer service, marketing is a great example. As the AI it's not only going to just offload those tasks that take a long time to do, like creating a drip marketing campaign and personalizing it and segmenting and all that. It's also going to start giving you insights so you can create better campaigns and grow the business. So there is an overlap, but I think for a lot of people, that efficiency is a prerequisite to growth.
And especially if you miss a larger team, as I wrote, and you were used to have larger teams around you, and at a sudden you are a one woman and a one man show, and you have to create a big impact. Whoo!
And I didn't know Nicole now owns a restaurant, or a hotel, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, necessity is the mother of invention. And that's why I really feel that over time, this is, well, I shouldn't say a bigger boost. Over time, though, it has a potential, AI, to provide very small businesses with a bigger lift, because and you can start learning how to use AI to address those big pain points right away, and then just keep adding more things and getting more sophisticated in how you use it. So I think that over time, it has the potential to really help the small business get a lot of, power without a lot of the overhead and, what should I say, the complications really that large businesses have. I mean, in very small businesses, the processes are limited to a few people at most, right? So you can kind of cut through a lot of the issues at a large company with maybe multiple departments and hundreds of employees that have to, touch this workflow and align it with this AI functionality. You don't have that. You can kind of just look at what, Mary, John, and Joe do and say, okay, Mary, John, and Joe, now we're going to do it this way. And here's where AI is going to help us. And so you can kind of shortcut a lot of it, I think.
Mm-hmm. In the cases that you probably got, let's drill back a little into detail. So the ones that are using it, can they quantify the value that they get out of it?
We did not ask them to quantify the value. This wasn't really like a TCO study or something like that. But I have been on a number of calls with some of our vendor clients and their customers, right? Mm-hmm. And I would have to say that in SMB and even some larger companies, I don't think most people are at the point yet of putting quantifiable metrics. Mm-hmm. In other words, they can say to you, yeah, I think, we used to have, one person handling expense accounts and invoices and, these things that have to be paid out, right, from the company. Mm-hmm. And now that's a half-time thing, and that person can also help with this other thing. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like the metrics in a more scientific way, I don't think a lot of SMBs are at that point. Maybe in the large enterprise they are, but I don't think in SMB they are yet.
Why do you think that is?
SMBs are notoriously, SMBs are notoriously not into having a lot of, taking the time to do a lot of measurable stuff. However, I will say more vendors are rolling out these different dashboards and tools to help them, to help you get that information without you having to do anything. Like, I forget what Salesforce is called, but we were just all briefed on that. Mm-hmm. So if the tool does it for you, then we're going to see more people being able to say, oh yeah, this is how much time we save. This is how much headcount we save. This is all these things that are going to be more scientifically, I guess you could say, calculable. And did any of our respondents do we ask for an ROI calculation? No. That's a whole nother kind of study.
Yeah, but it would be an interesting study, because right now, even if it's
it would be an interesting setting.
Especially if it's vendor case studies, they of course will come only with the positive ones, not with the negative ones. So, and there's rarely any mention of any achievement or improvement towards business strategic goals. So then, I
I think, like I said before, we're in the for SMB, we're in the midst of a lot of them are using it more for the efficiency and streamlining of the work, right?
Mhm.
But we're looking at what they're planning to use it for. And
Yeah.
in almost every function, the plans are high for these more analytical and predictive and proactive kind of tasks. But when you think about it, I really date myself, but I remember 1998 when Evan Goldberg and Zach Nelson came to our office when I worked at Summit Strategies, talking about NetLedger, which became NetSuite and the cloud. And then, maybe a few months later, Mark Benioff was there talking about Salesforce and the cloud. And you really had to go till at least a good dozen years before the cloud became mainstream, before you would see numbers anywhere near like we're seeing for AI. So this thing is like a whirlwind. And so on the analyst side, I might say, oh, well, why aren't they using it for this, that, or the other thing? In fact, the rate and the pace of this adoption of AI in SMB, maybe the only exception might be iPhones. It's outstripped everything. It's outstripped every technology that I can think of, business technology.
Yeah. Well, in contrast to some of the recent hype technologies, we do not have a solution in search of a problem here, or not necessarily. I mean, what is crypto? Crypto contracts,
Yeah,
okay,
that's not
contracts I
something
could
I
do before
delve
blockchains,
into.
right? So that's and they were as trusted as they are now, just that they worked a bit more efficient than with blockchain technology. But still, I mean, especially for an SMB, even I get it that they want to get the job done at all. Yeah, so there's nothing worse than not having time for doing the job. Yeah. But on the other hand, a job not done or a project not taken up is sometimes better than a project taken up if the cost of doing this project is higher than not doing it. So
Absolutely.
That's why I'm always wondering, why is there no look at profitability of using any type of technology? What's your take on that?
Yeah, and it was hard for me to get everything because there was a lag there. But I do see Ralph's question that if I'm a laggard, what's the cost of inaction? And I think it's pretty clear, honestly, for all its potential problems and unintended negative consequences that may be out there, and the fact that everybody should be double checking it, because you don't want to just knee jerk and use any AI outcomes without looking at it and thinking it through. It's saving you the time from so I'll give you an easy explanation. So when we do a study, I'll put charts into it and I'll say summarize the data in the chart, right? So all the data is in there, but for me to write the sentences, it's say 32% say X, 43% say Y, this percent say Z. It takes a lot of time, right? This way I can get AI to write all that out in text from the chart. Even in that case, it sometimes gets it wrong. When it's on a chart, it will have the top 3 things, and it won't say the top 3 things. It'll have 2 of them, and then it'll pick something that's number 5. So even in a very simple use case like that, you have to double check. So, but the flip side is that still takes a lot less time than in that very simple use case. It still takes a lot less time for me to check it and correct it than doing it all from scratch. So I think, and we're not even talking about using agentic AI and using AI for decision making and analytical tasks and things like that. We're just talking about very basic block and tackle. It just can compress the time and compress and take in so much more information than the human brain could probably take in for most of us to kind of go through and come up with some, like if you think of a vendor, even a small company with a big client database, and you want to use AI to analyze something in there and suggest some actions to, boost your business or, provide better customer service, whatever. There's probably a lot of data in there, and it'd probably be very hard for a human to do as good a job as at least taking that first pass through and kind of summarizing what's in there and making some recommendations. So I think the cost of inaction is high.
Is it higher as the cost of action? Because there have been 2 studies recently, one done by Salesforce, and it's scientific studies, one by Carnegie Mellon University. And they basically say that even the best of all models fail at 70%. Imagine that, 70%, 70, not 17, of all business cases or business jobs given to them. So this to me means that the cost of doing it is probably higher than waiting it out. After all, those vendors are, well, they're not doing it for free as well.
Yeah, no, that's why this whole issue of having inaccurate and incorrect data is such a concern. And that's why having a process to vet the outputs of AI is so important. And that's why some of the vendors are doing more within the applications to, I guess, make sure that the algorithms are stronger, make sure, and that's the other thing. It's only going to be as good as the data you're putting in too. So does it make mistakes even when, you give it the correct data? Sure, it does. But think of your data clean, you're really going to come up with bad outputs then. And I do think that over time, though, it's going to become more sophisticated. It's going to become better at doing what it's doing. We can see how that's happened, even in the last couple of years that improves. But it doesn't take the onus off the humans. The humans still have a big role to play. And, the thing that concerns me is people of our era. Most of us, in whatever our area of expertise is, we can look at AI outputs, and we can probably do a pretty good job if it's in our area. Obviously, I can't do this for like a brain surgery thing, but pretty good, litmus test of does this sound right? What might be some of the issues? What I worry about is the kids in school today, because they're never having to do any of this stuff from scratch. So it's kind of the equivalent of, if you never had to do adding, subtraction, multiplication, division, geometry, if you were just given a calculator and you never had to figure out how it worked, how not how the calculator worked, but how to actually do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, how would you have any idea? How would you have any idea if the data was wrong? So I think that's going to be a big challenge going forward, because, a lot of these students today are getting to shortcut all of that, doing it from scratch stuff. And I don't know how discerning they're going to be able to be. And So the processes are going to have to be strong processes to make sure that somehow these outputs and information that is coming from the AI, is on the right path, if that makes sense.
Well, let me challenge that a little. Do you know how the gear shift in your car works? I don't know how it works in mine, but just still I use it.
No, but I think I think it's a little different, because if you put it in reverse instead of drive, you'd have a pretty big learning experience right there.
It depends on how.
But
it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just heard something, I know we're almost at the end, but it was like people creating content, just put back to the student example, write me an essay on, I don't know, analyzing the differences between two philosophers, right? On their philosophies about X, Y, or Z. The retention, once they get this output out of AI, the retention of it is like minuscule compared to the retention level, which is very high if you were going and doing all that research on your own and then constructing a paper outlining the differences on your own. So I do think it's a different thing, because not only are you not having to go through the process of figuring out how to put together this knowledge and put it together in a substantive, analytical way, you're also forgetting it immediately, because you really didn't have any skin in the game to begin with. So I don't know what the answer for that is, but that is a concern I have.
Yeah, there clearly is a concern. So the boundary is constantly shifting. Well, it's shifting into one direction, actually.
Yeah.
So the base tasks are getting automated away. This is the calculator or the gear shift. And the critical thinking should remain, which means that there need to be some analysis skills. And there we are in the midst of the bad stuff, the bad education systems worldwide, because critical thinking is not exactly what is taught. So this, neither here nor in Germany. And that includes universities, by the way.
Totally agree. I mean, I have two neighbors that are both doctors, and I guess the other thing is, would you want the AI to diagnose your medical issue and have that parlayed to you by a doctor who had never actually worked with that condition and had only used AI to, you want people to have some hands-on experience in a domain on their own and really figuring it out, whether that's opening up the cadaver and learning where all the body parts are or whatever. I mean, it just has to be, I think, like Rolf, you're saying on there right now, how to teach people to use these tools in a smart way.
Exactly. Yeah. Compare them, find out where is the beef for you, where is it delivering the benefit. And if you compare 3 tool sets and you have 5 topics areas, finance, marketing, employment, writing the right resume, something like this, and you throw this into a student's course with 50 students, wow, you get an impact by swarm intelligence and playing around with it.
In the consequence of time, or following the consequence of time, we are out of time. So it was quite a.
It went very fast.
Quite a good one. Still, I would like to end with, well, our usual famous last words that I'd like to give you. Taking this survey, what is the one advice that, based upon your findings, you would give an SMB?
Well, if you're not even thinking about using it, like if you're like, oh, we don't need that, I think the advice I give there is just get a free tool and start playing around with it, even if you're using it to help you in your personal life. Like, here's the ingredients in my fridge. What can I make tonight? Use it in really low risk. You could still have a lousy dinner, but use it in low risk ways, just so you can start getting a feel for what it does. And then also, if you don't think you're using it or want to use it, find out, does some of the stuff I already use, maybe it's QuickBooks that has a lot of AI enabled capabilities. Find out what's in there. You may already be using it, and you'll be able to kind of see how it's doing what it's doing, at least at some level. And for those people already using it, I would say, we are still in the early going. I think it's really important to think about what are the things in your business that you need to do better, right? What are the things that's really, just like any tool, where's my business getting bogged down? I'm not going to be able to boil the ocean, and most companies can't do everything at once. So are the biggest obstacles to my success, which areas are those in? Are they in customer service? Are they in financials? Where are they? And start looking at those first. And Ralphie, you're kind of alluding to that in the chat. Look at alternative ways that you could use AI, and start with the applications you already use. And how can you use AI within those applications first to do those better? Because I think in most cases, you're going to be surprised that there's a lot in there that you may not be taking advantage of. And then if it's an area you haven't automated yet, maybe now's the perfect time to do it, right? Maybe you don't have a customer service solution. And that's a big problem for your company. Well, there's a lot of good solutions out there that might help you that have AI, and good place to start.
Okay, now we have the proof that at least one person still listened to us in spite of all the technological challenges we had today.
Oh gosh, it was not good.
Still, thanks, Laurie. This was enlightening.
Yeah.
And thanks to Blair that you endured us.
Oh, you guys are fun. It's the technology.
Let's hope it's working technologically better next week when we are doing the next take of our AI debate with John Reed and Dr. Michael Wu. So this will be another fun one. Those two are always good for some snarky points to be made.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, snarky and to the point. So this is.
Well, thank you, Rolf and Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, and see you in another episode, hopefully soon.
Take care.